Paul's is in the house.
Right? It's so good to be back.
It's
this
great
is wonderful.
to have you. Been like jet setting around the world,
well, you know,
doing like celebrity stuff.
But here's the cool thing. I leave for a couple months.
Yeah.
And everything changes. This
So
is awesome.
we did a little spring cleaning.
Just a little bit.
Just a
bit. I love it.
a couple things, rearranged some furniture, added a screen.
We're just going to change everything.
You know,
but you should feel at home. I do feel at home, though. This is great.
Yeah, we love it here. We're so excited about our show today. I have a fantastic guest I'm looking forward to. His name is David Eaton. He is the co-founder and CEO of a great organization called Access. Kev, I love what they do. So they have these great emails that they send down. They have a great website that we'll tell you more about. But really helping parents understand culture and understand this world that their children are wading through.
I think that's huge because I know, first of all, my kids they're all grown up and married now. But even when they grew up, it was totally different. Now, it's not just a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Oh,
I think it's
absolutely.
a huge discussion that needs to happen.
So I'm looking forward to my chat with David Eaton. And also we have some more people on the show.
We do. Robbie Simons is going to speak to us about being courageous in the face of crisis. And then we've got a wonderful musician from Goatee Records, Ryan Stevenson. But that's later.
Yeah. So we're talking about dating today and our hot topic.
I know, right? Because it's something that's on the tip of my tongue, right?
When was the last time you dated, Kev?
It was a little while. I think it was like 1986. I don't even remember
How long have you and Wendy been married?
We've been married 30 years, and we dated just over 3 years before we got married. So the dating scene is somewhat different, I believe, than it was when I was in the middle of dating. Yeah,
so Joshua Harris, who wrote, a very celebrated book called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. It sold 1.2 million copies. It was a New York Times bestseller. It came out in 1997. Well, Josh, the whole premise of this book was, maybe as Christians we shouldn't be dating because he thought that this would then open the door to divorce or just giving up on relationships. Yeah. So you would, meet somebody, and then if you were invested in this relationship, you would get married to them. So that was pretty much the premise of the book. It took off. A lot of churches.
It became a huge momentum in the church. Everyone was like, yes, that's exactly what we're supposed to do, right? They got a hold of it.
But then what happened? Josh Harris is now saying,
kind of went,
maybe it wasn't the right idea.
It was a good idea, but maybe it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. It's an incredible revelation for an author to say, you know what? I'm not sure I was right.
Yeah.
And to not only just say, I don't think I was right and run away, he says, I don't think I'm right. Please stop producing the book.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a book to give you another perspective. I thought, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, he said that, he made a mistake. He has pulled the book off the shelves. He's also pulled off any supplemental resources off the shelves as well. And he says he didn't leave room for the idea that dating could be a healthy way of learning what you're looking for in a long-term relationship. It could be part of growing personally. We have a sneak peek of a new documentary called I Survived. I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Watch this.
I need to take a journey of asking hard questions and letting the answers lead me wherever they will.
I walked into a room, I kid you not, you can't even make this up. It were guys on this side of the room, girls on that side of the room.
Ask someone out for a cup of coffee unless you know they're the one that you're going to be with for the rest of your life.
And it almost put this extra layer of pressure or shame.
If people that go on Tinder, they might have sex the first time they meet each other.
I was so afraid to kiss her. For you personally, you didn't kiss your wife before marriage.
My book made people feel like they had to do things a certain way, and I regret that.
In this whole process, there are a lot of people that want me to just throw out everything. They want me to throw out all the Christianity. They want me to apologize for teaching what I think the Bible has always taught. And so I wrestle with seeing ways in which my book didn't help people, and does that mean I was wrong in these massive ways?
We both didn't know what we were doing. I did things right, and marriage was a mess from the day the vows were exchanged.
Oh, it looks so good. Can't wait to watch that documentary. Great conversation on dating, but we have so much more in store for the show today.
We do. You know, starting a family can be stressful in times of, especially when pregnancy doesn't come easily. For Amy and Bill Franks, the diagnosis of endometriosis made conceiving a child an even more remote possibility. But rather than accepting this discouraging news, they decided to pray to God for help. Here's their story.
Bill and I were married in May of 2013, it was funny, we were on our honeymoon and we thought, well, wouldn't this be neat if it kind of happened right away, because we knew we had wanted to have a big family. So we kind of began trying a little bit more after that, and probably about a year in, we had thought, okay, well, this is, you know, maybe this should be happening by now, but it's not happening. So we made an appointment to go see our doctor, and he had referred us to a specialist who suspected that I might have endometriosis. I think at that point in the journey, 3 years in, I think we were so surrendered at that point that we said to God, even if we haven't seen you as the God who heals in this situation, we know you're the God who heals. Even though we haven't seen a miracle in this situation, we know you're the God of miracles. And even though we haven't seen the impossible happen yet, we know you're the God who makes the impossible possible. I went through the pre-op appointment. I went for my blood work, and they had said to me, is there any chance you could be pregnant? I said, no. Anyway, I got a call later that day from the fertility clinic doctor, and she said, well, we have to cancel your surgery because you're pregnant. Lyra was born on February 17th. Lyra, her name means Song of Pure Joy, and I feel that it really describes her character.
To be able to face hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and to be able to still stand and to lean on my faith and not crumble under all of that, I think is probably the biggest thing that I've taken away with both myself and with Amy.
Our daughter is a miracle. She's our miracle child, and the doctor said no, but God said yes.
Leaving the hospital that day, I had to phone our kids. And say, I've got some bad news.
There is one thing that has always helped people overcome unbearable circumstances: prayer. With thousands of people reaching into our prayer lines for help and for healing, we can rely on one truth: Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever.
So the question Dr. Nell DeBoer and I set out to answer in our book, For Your Health, is how can we access God's methods for healing? Our book shines a light on biblical context of God healing humanity, while also giving you scientific proof for miraculous healing. We give you awe-inspiring case studies of individuals who have defied medical odds through Jesus' power to heal us. And when we put the mystery of God, obedience to prayer, and broken health into spiritual practice, even our biggest weakness can become our greatest strength. So I pray this book will fortify you in faith. It'll inspire you to pray, to put your trust in God, and it will be healing to you, allowing God to comfort, encourage, and affect you for your health.
Call 1-800-265-3100 or donate online at crossroads.ca/donate.
We want to encourage you, go online right now or phone us right away and request your copy, For Your Health, a look into God's methods for healing, for a suggested minimum gift of $40 or more. Up next, navigating the cultural landscape and making sense of it, here's Maggie with her guest.
My guest today leads an organization called Access, which sets out to resource parents and teens with meaningful information on how to decipher today's culture in a relevant way through the eyes of faith. David Eaton joins us today. Hey, David, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me about the genesis of Access. How did this all start?
Oh, man. I had graduated from college, and I had looked back on my high school years. I had gone on a mission trip, and I saw a picture. I was on the street corner of Mexico preaching the gospel, and I started looking at all my friends that had gone on that trip with me. And I just saw them. They were doing incredible things in the world, but one thing had massively changed. They were all atheists, or the ones that I was looking at in the picture. And so to me, that just blew my mind, and I said, something has to change. So we started saying, what could we do to translate the gospel to Western teenagers? According to the Pine Tops Foundation, over 42 million teens will leave the faith by 2050. Wow. So
say that again,
42 million.
42 million.
42 million. It's catastrophic. It's going to change the face of Christianity unless some intervention happens.
Yeah.
And so at Access, we're all about connecting the wisdom of parents with the wonder of their teenagers. So we started thinking, how could we reach more teens? Well, instead of us trying to be the hero that the next generation needs, we realized that moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are the hero.
Yeah.
So how could we be their research assistants, helping them know what's going on in culture? I mean, language, really we're making them bilingual.
Yeah.
You know, like broccoli means weed, or Anna is shorthand for anorexia, or there's an entirely new emoji language. And so how can we help moms and dads join the conversation that culture is already having with their kids?
Now, I became a Christian when I was around 19 years old. And so I'm thinking, you know, people are watching this and they might not even be a Christian and be like, well, why does that matter? Why does faith matter to a young person? Why should it matter to a young person when they're deciphering this crazy world that we live in?
Yeah, well, you're going to believe in something.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have this giant story for the world. Worldview is a term for it. And so how all of these things fit together. But I think every generation is asking different questions. And so I think any loving parent, any loving grandparent is going to try to figure out what questions is the next generation asking. So I think we live in a world right now where it's all about identity. In the past, it might have been about truth. You know, there was a phase where all about stories. I mean, who doesn't love a great story? But now the big question is, what does it mean to be human? And how you answer that question changes everything.
Yeah. What are young people searching for? Why are they leaving? Why is there this mass exodus happening over the next couple of years?
Well, that's a huge question right now.
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I know. I guess I should. Yeah, I think their core issues, their core questions are not being answered. I think when it comes to the church, they're trying to say, is the church for me?
Yeah.
I think the way that they interpret and think about the world, I mean, they're getting married later, and so what does it feel like to be a single person in church?
Right.
And then when you're in church, I mean, especially when you're in church when you're younger, and then you leave and there's this transition that happens, you go to college, it's really hard to say, you know, when you're in high school, the whole world is all about making your life easy. It tells you what to do, and then when you go to college and when you leave,
you're on your own.
Yeah, it's about the customers that you're serving at your business and trying to figure out, hey, how do I integrate into this church right now? And then really, is this really answering the questions that I'm deeply longing for and asking?
What are some of the #1 questions that you're getting from parents?
Oh, man. Parents, it's all about the smartphone right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there is just so much. I mean, one dad says we spend $3,000 to $4,000 a year on our family's devices only to get in a yelling match once a week.
Or to ignore each other.
Right. Oh, yeah. Or, you know, even like the way TV's laid out is like you can watch. It's not designed for the whole family to watch together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like your kids can watch their shows on their phones or their tablets, or you're watching sports on TV, or, you know, mom's looking at Pinterest or whatever. So I think there is that division there, and the real question is like, what do I do with my smartphones? But then they're starting to think of like, well, what about sexting? I hear that might be a thing, or I just don't feel like I understand the world of my teens. And what happens when you don't understand the worlds of your teens is you become silent.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing your kids need. They need a listening ear, and they need someone who knows their language. I mean, you live in the same like geographic area, but you live in completely different worlds.
Would you say that's one of the biggest mistakes we as parents make, is the silence?
You know, I think one of the biggest mistakes you make is listening, and not listening in a judgmental way. So I think it's good to just listen and try to understand with curiosity, awareness, and kindness.
Yeah.
So how do you just listen to that and then realize, hey, you live in a different world than I do. So I want to understand why you care about what you care about. And so I think that's the great kind of first step, as I said, joining the conversation. I mean, we have a resource called The Culture Translator. Every every Friday it comes out, just says, here's 4 things to talk about with your kids. I think you got to have that conversation. I mean, my favorite story right now is we had a young millennial who came to us, and she says, I've only had one real conversation with my dad. And when I heard that, I was like, no, no, you can't have just one real conversation. So much is going to be lost in translation. But then she paused, and she smiled, and she says, we've never stopped having that one conversation. You cannot outsource your parenting to a great teacher or to a coach or to a pastor or to a youth pastor. You know, a youth pastor might have an 18-month conversation with your kids. A coach might have a 3-year conversation with your kids. Maggie, you're going to have a 60-year conversation with your kids. And there's no one going to be more influential than you and your husband. Grandparents are going to have a 30-year conversation. Man, if the grandparents who are listening to this right now, sometimes they feel uninvited. I want you to know, the grandparents need to know you are invited. And like when moms and dads are like so angry over something with Fortnite or something with Snapchat or Instagram this or some new app there, nothing like a grandpa just to slip right in and just say, I don't care about that, but I care about you, and have that long play. So that's what I think, when we think about access, we think about there's millions of pipelines to the next generation that are empty. These are parents who are like looking for content to have great conversations with their kids. I mean, even dating, right? When we were kids, 80% of us dated. The current generation, 50% of them are dating. It's just a different world of interacting.
We're going to talk about some of these hot topics, right? So I was telling you in the green room, my 12-year-old was talking about vaping the other day. He heard of somebody who got caught vaping in their school washroom. Let's talk about this whole thing of vaping, and it's new, right? Like, and kids are feeling like, oh, it's not harmful.
It's not a combustible cigarette. It's not a big deal.
It's different than cigarettes. Break this down for us, David.
It is different than cigarettes because you don't smell like cigarettes after you smoke it, and you don't necessarily know what you're smoking, and so vaping is it's a way of consuming water vapor, and so it can just have flavors like watermelon sunrise or something like that, which is obviously targeting a young demographic. If when you hear that, you can also vape nicotine and really strong levels of nicotine, and you can also vape marijuana in a oil format. But you do not smell like marijuana. You do not smell like cigarettes. As soon as a teacher leaves the room, a kid could pull out a Juul, which is a type of, it's kind of a cool looking device to vape, and just have a couple hits on their vape. And so when they do that, the teacher comes back in, doesn't smell anything. And so here you have this super stimulated kid with something that's easy to sneak in, that doesn't smell, and really, initially it was like, oh, this is not as bad for you. But now there's starting to be reports saying, hey, watch out, watch out. Just because this was untested initially doesn't mean that we should just start adopting it. It doesn't mean that 13-year-olds should be doing it in the washroom.
So, quick tips for parents that might have kids that are interested in vaping.
I think there's 2 initial big picture tips. Is like, as a parent, practice your I'm not shocked face. So when you hear something intense, it's like, wait, who's smoking what, where?
I did that in this conversation. I was like, oh, okay, tell me more.
Really? And you're like, oh, I'm going to go and see what Access has to say on. So we have like a parent guide. It's like an 8-page briefing on vaping. So I think the I'm not shocked face is really important at first. And I love this question. Don't ask them if they have vaped first. Ask them about their friends. And then start with that question. You know, ask questions, be curious, be kind, be safe. I mean, oh man, I love this. I love this. You should say this to your kids. I say this to my kids. Tell them you can tell me anything. They need to know that over and over and over again. And every now and then say, you can tell me anything. And then you put a little aside, I'm going to be fair, I love you. And so that they feel safe enough to listen to what you have to say, because you want to connect your wisdom with their wonder.
Awesome. Oh, this is so good. So David Eaton, you are joining us every month. You're going to be one of our contributors. We're going to have a great segment called The Culture Translator, where you're going to be doing just exactly that, breaking down some of these current cultural trends and how parents need to wade through these issues. So stay tuned for more of David Eaton in the months to come. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get inspired with daily Advent devotionals on hope, peace, joy, and love. Go to crossroads.ca/Advent right now and sign up for your free daily Advent emails.
So glad you're with us today and hopefully this week. Man, I have a lot of faith for what God is teaching us through His Word this week, specifically in 2 Chronicles 20. Here's our theme: how to find courage within crisis. How do we make it through the hard times? How do we keep seeking the Lord? How are our lives changed when life gets the hardest? This one chapter in the Bible this week is showing us a pattern of principles of how to be men and women and children of courage, even and especially in the midst of crisis. Let me recap where we've been. It's so good to be familiar and to remember the things that we have learned. How do we find courage within crisis? Jehoshaphat's story, you start by seeking the Lord. There is no greater movement than seeking the Lord, setting our face upon Him. Secondly, power through prayer. Depending on God, speaking to Him. We acknowledge He's the one who is sovereign and awesome. Thirdly, strength through standing. Again, the prophet said to God's people, if you just stand firm, if you hold your position, God will fight for you. You only have to hold your ground. Fourthly, victory through believing. All through this text, again, the exhortation is believe and you will be established, believe and you will succeed. And then we find this today. This is probably my favorite one of the whole passage. It's this: we find a weapon in worship, in musical singing and worship. You're like, really, Robbie? Where do you find that from? The book. The book tells us. The Bible, God's Word. Listen to this. This is what it says in verse 21 now. And when he had taken counsel with the people, he appointed the leaders of God's army, appointed those who were to sing to the Lord and praise His name. And they said, give thanks to the Lord. His steadfast love endures forever. And then we find verse 22. It's so powerful. It's so great. Ready? And when they began to sing, oh, that blesses my heart, and praise the Lord. When they began to sing, the Lord set an ambush against the enemies of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, who had come against Judah, so that they were routed. Do you notice that right here? Okay, so the army is the worship team. That's amazing. When they sing to the Lord does everything else. The power of praise, the power of lifting up your eyes in the midst of crisis, the power of music. Do you know that music is God's invention? Do you know the highest purpose of music is for the declaration and praise of our God? Do you know how much we do that? That's why so much of the church gathered is musical singing, because of the purpose and the exhortations found and the glory of setting our eyes on Christ and not ourselves. You know, even this very morning, I found myself up early, outside, walking. It was dark. It was rainy. I had worship tunes playing in my ears, and as I walked down the street and sang the praises and the truth of God, tears filling my eyes, running down my cheeks, because my God is so awesome. And the worship begins, and the weapon is found. The weapon of worship to rout the enemy. Who's the enemy? Satan. You want to make Satan tremble? You be a man or woman who's filled with the praise of God and give glory to Jesus Christ, and you will see darkness flee, because that's when light starts to shine in such an awesome way. This is the power and the weapon and the might of worship found within God's people. This whole thing, I pray it's for you right now. 2 Chronicles 20, open it up, read it, take it for yourself and see what God does. Prayer lines this week, end strong. 1-866-273-4444. May your life be changed to find courage, especially within crisis. Amen.
I love that. And I mean, what are the chances that you're sitting right here?
I know.
The man who leads people in worship. Do you find that worshiping can be that weapon that you just need to break through?
For me, and what I'm finding is, even for people that don't do music, that don't maybe sing, there's something special. It breaks into places maybe just other things can't get to. There's nothing like praising our Lord through music. It just changes so many things.
And the passion that comes with it. I think sometimes you know, have you ever, you've probably heard this, oh, was the worship good? Right. You know, and it's like, but you're worshiping the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. You need to give everything when you're when you actually put it in context, that you are singing
it changes everything.
Songs of worship to the God of the universe.
I grew up in a charismatic church, and I never understood liturgy. I started to understand liturgy. Even liturgy came alive. When you start realizing what you're singing about, who you're singing to, everything's changed. I love it.
Well, we want to tell you about this Reach magazine. If you are not a partner with us, we want to get this into your hands. So go to our website, 100huntley.com, get your copy, and look at that. Advent devotional on the other side. We have some great music for you at the end of our show today. Ryan Stevenson with the song No Matter What. Have a great weekend.
Take care.
Bye.
A lot of us grew up believing at any moment we can lose it all. And at the drop of a hat, God might turn his back and move on. A lot of us feel like we blew it, thinking that we're just too far gone. But I want you to know there's still a hope for you now. No matter what you've done, you can't erase his love. Nothing can change it. You're not separated, no matter what. There's never been a better time to get honest. There's never been a better time to get clean. So come as you are, run to the cross and be free. Oh, be free. No matter what you've done, you can't erase his love. Nothing can change it. You're not separated. No matter still a daughter, you're still a son, no matter